So be honest, are you excited about the real estate industry, or are you just kind of muddling along, seeing what's next and hoping for the best? Today, I spoke with Michael Valdes. He is with LPT International, and he is the CEO, coming over about 5 months ago from eXp Realty as their chief growth officer. And he has such excitement about the industry and growing LPT. And we talked a lot about leadership challenges and what it takes to grow a company. But you don't need to change companies in order to get excited about it. You just need to take a different look at your business. And he talks all about that. So enjoy the podcast. Michael, so good to talk to you again. Welcome to the RealTrending podcast.
Thank you, Tracey. I am so honored to be here on the podcast with you. How are you today?
I am great. And the last time we talked, you were with eXp, so it's been a little while. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the transition and what made you decide to go with LPT. I know they're a fast-growing company right now. So why don't you tell me a little bit about that and a little bit about LPT for people who aren't really up on the company?
Yeah, of course. So as you mentioned, I was at eXp. I was the chief growth officer there and was really proud of the accomplishments that I did with that company. When I joined, they were at about 20,000 agents, helped grow that to 90,000 from 3 countries to 24 countries in a very short period of time, less than 3 years. And so it was something where I was, again, very proud with what I did there, but it was meeting Robert, understanding what the LPT platform was, and really knowing that I could give more to agents with this platform. You know, I've been really lucky. This is my 20th year in real estate. And before that, I was 10 years in banking. So I've done very well. I've been very fortunate, and I don't need to work anymore. And if I do, I want to do it in a place that I can create impact for others and do it in a platform that's going to give us the biggest reach. And seeing what this platform was with LPT as the fastest growing real estate company in our industry, and also what we were building, it actually becomes the platform that can serve the greatest number of agents in our industry.
So explain the model to me and explain what you mean by platform.
Yeah, of course. So the LPT has what we call agent choice. There are 2 models. It's a hybrid model that lives side by side. An agent can come in and be at 100% commission, pay a $500 transaction fee for 10 transactions, and then they're fully capped. Then you have the 80-20 model, where someone has a $15,000 cap. And under the 80-20 model, you are allowed to attract and build an organization. Under the 100% model, you're not. But this allows you to know where it's best for that agent. What does that agent want to do? It also does something that allows the agent to progress from one model to another. For example, somebody can come in, look, inventory is really low right now. People are struggling. Somebody, we don't charge a monthly fee. We don't charge an agent anything until they close their first sale. And that, I think, is a huge distinction. When we start looking at, when we talk about an agent first model and agent choice, that's exactly what this is. We allow the agent to come in. They could be at the 100% model. They have a shadow accounting of what their revenue share might be if they were to have attracted somebody. If at any point they want to step into that, they step into it seamlessly. It's not retroactive, but it happens from day one moving forward. No one else does that. And we're about to introduce a third part of this model. We are about to introduce a standalone luxury brand that will be wholly owned by LPT Holdings, but it will be a different brand, a different name. It is called Aperture, and it is focused on just those luxury agents. You have to have production qualifications to enter into that brand. You do not cap on that brand. It is a completely different model with elevated commercials, up to and including television commercials for agents in order to brand them under this new brand. So it is incredibly inclusive of all agents that focus on different segments of our industry.
Okay, so first of all, keeping track of all of the, the different what they choose sounds like an accounting nightmare. But
Agent
I know
choice.
I know agent choice. But I see that it's definitely great for the agent. I mean, and that's the whole idea of it, right?
You know,
So
and that's really it. And
yeah.
it's not as though they jump back and forth.
Yeah.
It's as though they make a choice. They have to stay within that choice for a certain
Mhm.
period of time. You just don't sort of like bounce back
Yeah.
and forth and oh, I got a sale. I'm going back to 100%.
Yeah.
It is sort of like there is some sort of structure because you're right. We need to
Yeah.
be able to serve them best,
Yeah.
and that takes a lot of the back office as well.
Yeah. And so how many agents do you have and how many states are you in right now?
So when I joined just 5 months ago, we were in
Mhm.
22 states. We're currently in 48 states. We've been very busy.
Yeah.
And we just opened in Alberta, Canada.
Mhm.
We do not publicly announce our agent count, but I can say since the last time that we announced, which was at that 10,000 mark,
Mhm.
our increase has been exponential, almost at a 70% increase.
Okay, wonderful. So I want to get personal here and talk about, I think, everybody's made a mistake in their career, or maybe it's not a mistake because it turns into something really wonderful. It's a lesson learned. So why don't you tell me what the biggest kind of lesson that you've learned and what you've taken away from it?
That's a great question. It actually makes one very pensive on that. I think the idea of not actually, like thinking big enough, to be quite honest. When I first came over to my old company, they had opened up 3 countries in 8 years. I opened up the next 5 in 6 months. And so it's the idea of trying to convince others of that idea that you need to be a little crazy for growth and success, and knowing that you can see the vision and step into it. So I think it's the idea of allowing yourself that freedom, because in so doing you are almost negotiating with others to lessen what you want to create. And so I've learned to allow that process to not be interrupted, because that's how you actually end up creating some amazing things, right? What I did with my other company was history making. I intend to do the same here. And it is the idea of now, when we start looking at international expansion, especially, it's the idea that I now have 2 brands with which I can actually pull different levers, whether that is a more mainstream opportunity on a countrywide level for an LPT brand, or whether that is a luxury focus that maybe might be a specific city. So I might open up an Aperture London, but I may not necessarily open up an LPT UK.
Yeah. And that I think, a lot of entrepreneurs that are the successful entrepreneurs are the ones who are willing to just kind of let go and take those risks and,
Yeah.
and really like push themselves or believe in them, and believe that it can happen no matter what. And they're willing to fail, they're willing to fail.
That is so important because
Mhm.
you need to, right? You
Mhm.
learn some valuable lessons, right? It's part of what you do in growing so fast.
Mhm.
It's almost like the rocket ship is there and you're building the rocket ship as it's going up,
Yeah.
and that's great. But sure, there's going to be a lot of lessons learned. The majority of that was in leadership.
Mhm.
How you actually go in and do something that is 10,000 miles away from you. How do you know how
Mhm.
that's being run day to day? How do you know the cultural mores that are happening in that specific country? How do you translate the model that you've built in North America and bring it over to another country and allow them to adopt it and have them understand it? And so those were one of the greatest sort of challenges, that if you had the wrong person
Mhm.
telling the story, it didn't grow.
Yeah.
Point blank.
Yeah.
Point.
And let's talk about some of those strategies. So, what are some, the strategies that how do you prioritize the consistent growth of the company with all of the rest of the day to day operations? What's your secret sauce? Like, what do you focus on? How do you really do it?
I think the greatest answer to that, Tracy, is letting people understand what the greater picture is. And I mean everyone. I mean, my assistant,
Mhm.
my head of marketing, my anyone, to understand, because those people don't necessarily touch the agent. Those
Mhm.
people don't necessarily know the effect that you give somebody when you actually present this model, and they're now sort of having financial freedom for their families
Mhm.
and getting something that is really generational.
Mhm.
And it excites me when you start building that, when they understand the role that they play, that everyone is doing this together for the end goal. People take responsibility for it. I've been hearing this a lot from my team in the last 5 months since I've joined LPT. I'm excited again about real estate. And that's the greatest compliment I can achieve, because it's having someone understand what that future that you're building is.
Yeah, and I think that it's kind of re-energizing yourself as well, but you have to actually know what your vision is, right? To be able
Yes,
to articulate it. And I feel like there are a lot of people who are a little unclear. They kind of, is it my culture, is it my vision, what do we really want to do here? And so what are some of the ways that you are able to kind of be clear about that vision and articulating it to your team and to agents?
I think the vision becomes really clear. We are in the game to build the largest real estate company in our industry. Period. We're doing that not just by the numbers of volume and transactions. We also want to be the greatest training facility of our industry. We have to have agents that know their craft, especially now. That's how you win. You need to have people that know. I mean, imagine you are still somebody that just has a real estate license doesn't mean they know what they're doing, and we all know that. We've been in this business long enough to see that, to know that. And so right now it's important for someone to understand, if you are properly trained and you can then help that consumer with their largest decision of their lives, probably, then you win. Then everything else comes in. So the idea of building the largest real estate company in our industry, that's great. How do we get there? And the why? Why do we want to build it? Those are the intrinsic values that someone has to really understand to know the bigger picture.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I do feel like this is a great time for agents to take that time to really, learn about the industry and what they're doing in their local market. Because it is a little bit of a slower market right now. I know we're looking at a good market coming into 2025. It looks like we're going to have a better market than this year. So doing that preparation just can, really drive them to success in 2025 as well.
Well, this is the time for that. I couldn't agree with you more, Tracy. It's the idea that a lot of people left our industry. A lot of people
Mm-hmm.
left our industry because, 3 years ago, they were order takers. They
Mm-hmm.
didn't have to do anything. They got a listing in the afternoon, and by dinner time, you had five offers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you didn't have to do anything. You didn't have to have any skills. And that was such a disservice to them and to our industry overall. And so when you're looking at this, if you are properly trained and you know what you're doing, and you can actually articulate those values.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking now about buyer broker commissions, right? It's like we spent 2 weeks at LPT doing a boot camp for all of our agents. We had up to 30,000 agents that we touched. And that's people that just kept coming in for other things. We did this live, and it was not anything that was recorded. We thought it was important for agents to ask their questions of us live. Excuse me. And everyone was on it. Robert, myself, everybody was on that call, and were able to have those discussions. We had our state brokers coming in. They were doing separate calls. We had this going on. And by the way, when that was over, those agents felt more empowered to talk about their value, and their on average, their commission actually went up.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah, we'll be doing some studies at HousingWire on compensation. We
Yeah.
want to get it right though, so we're looking at January, really digging into that. So should be interesting.
We'll be happy to give you our stats as well.
Okay, great. Good to hear. So let's talk about key milestones that in your short time that you've reached and some that you're, really looking to reach in 2025.
Sure. Well, as I mentioned earlier, we went from 22 states to
Mm-hmm.
48 states in 5 months. We opened up Alberta, Canada last week. We'll be opening up British Columbia and Ontario, hopefully before the end of the year. We're just waiting on our final licenses in those provinces. And then we'll be looking at other territories for both brands. So we're on Aperture. We're having some extensive conversations for an Aperture London, Aperture Milan, and an Aperture Paris. We're also looking at other strategic locations for LPT internationally, including places like Puerto Rico and Mexico and South Africa.
Yeah.
So there are some really great, exciting things that we have going on. We're also preparing for our IPO at some point in the latter part of next year. That's well underway. We have done some amazing movement in that part as well. We hired Jeff Whiteside, who was the CFO of my former company, and he has joined as CFO of LPT in preparation for the IPO. So we've got a lot of great things that have happened in just 5 months.
Okay, that's fast. So how long has LPT been in existence?
2.5 years.
2.5. Okay, because I know Robert owned a mortgage
He still does.
company. He still does. Okay.
RP
Yeah.
Funding is owned. It has nothing to do with LPT. It is not
Yeah.
part of LPT Holdings. It is a separately held company.
Yeah.
But that company is still in existence and one of the largest in Central Florida.
Yes, we get a lot of, I see the ads all the time. So
Yeah.
definitely. So with brand, let's talk about branding and like what role do you feel like branding really plays in growing a company like LPT and how do you ensure that there's consistencies across markets?
So we always say that we are the period behind the agent's brand. We always feel as though the agent should be the brand. They're the ones with the relationship. We are the ones that will support them in their business and be able to build the type of business that they want to build. On the flip side, Aperture is a brokerage first brand. So Aperture is the brand on the luxury market where we absolutely recognize that consumers and agents alike are wanting to stand behind a brand that will help them elevate their average sales price and be able to be in that ultra luxury market. And so that's something where we will lead with brand first. And then on the LPT side, it is definitely agent first as the brand.
Okay, great. And let's kind of shift to real estate trends. What are you seeing out there? Not necessarily housing trends, but as far as, trending in the industry, what are you seeing out there and where are you seeing the biggest opportunities?
Look, I think that the biggest opportunity is just in the noise that's happening, right? Everyone is trying to figure out our industry. If you've seen also, there's a lot of consolidation happening.
Yes.
We just saw what happened with Compass and Christie's and at properties. And this is something that, is probably going to continue. There is a trend that will probably continue with that. We are incredibly well capitalized. There might be some opportunities that we're looking at as well prior to our IPO. So I think that's a trend that will continue. You will see also a lot of independents that will try to find a home with some of these other brands. We just actually brought on Big Block Realty. They were the number 36 independent in the nation. They had 1,200 agents and they have joined the LPT platform. So right now we are in the midst of onboarding their 1,200 agents in the state of California. And they actually looked at what LPT was doing. They saw the growth trajectory. They saw the fact that this was a business decision for them. The idea that they would have some significant savings in their operating expenses and then an opportunity for them to grow outside of California and to really grow and attract on an international level now. So for them, it was a really great and compelling story. And I think we'll be seeing a lot more of that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I feel like, especially the smaller independents are really looking for a home right now. So I see a lot of, I know there's some opportunity in M&A coming up. And for a while there, I think really Compass was about the only one buying companies. I mean, there
Correct.
were smaller acquisitions going on, but
Yeah.
I feel like that's going to change in the coming year. We'll see a little more of that.
I agree. And I think that the franchise model will be having some greater difficulties as well.
Yeah.
There's too many other choices right now. Why would somebody write a big check to have a brand that they don't necessarily need?
It'll be interesting. I do think, there's been for years this idea that you either have to be a boutique or you have to be really big, because anybody in the middle is going to get,
Followed, right?
yeah, yeah. And I see that happening. It continues to happen now. So,
I
yeah.
think it's probably happening in a greater capacity right now because there's
Mhm.
less inventory, there's less transactions happening,
Yeah.
right? So the people that are actually getting that piece of the pie, you
Hmm.
actually have to sort of like go and sit at the same table to have any piece of the pie right now.
Yeah.
So I think that those mergers are going to be a trend now
Hmm.
in the short term, and acquisitions and companies becoming greater. And I think that as this dust settles, there's going to be a few large players that are going to be the ones that dominate the market.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to talk about the role of a real estate agent, because I see a little bit of an evolution, and I want your opinion on this. Where do you see how do you see it changing or evolving in the next maybe 5 years? Forced to be changed a little bit with the settlements and lawsuits, and then just the way the market is going, and the outside forces. So what is your opinion?
Look, I think that there's right now in our industry, an agent needs to really show their value. More importantly, they need to understand what their value is
Hmm.
and and articulate that. And I think that sounds like a very simplistic answer, but it actually isn't. It's much more complicated than that, because if you actually ask an agent, what is your value? Why should someone do business with you? They can't answer that question, the majority of them. And
Hmm.
that is astonishing to me. You are the CEO of your own company. And unless you know what your mission statement is, you're not going to survive. And so that to me is something that I am so passionate about. It is so incredible to me how few agents have a business plan. A business plan. How do you know what you need to do if you
Yeah.
don't plan it?
Yeah.
Right? You just don't go and sort of like say, "Oh, I'm going to go find a listing today and maybe sell it." That's not a plan. That's a wish and a hope. And so those agents need to just understand that they need to look at this as a true business,
Mhm.
right? It is not that whole sort of thing of just social hour and you're going to sell this at a cocktail party. The market is different. It's not the market of 3 or 4 years ago. And right now, you actually have to look at this as a business. You need to know what your value is. You need to articulate it, and you need to differentiate yourself for those agents that are left, because you're fighting for a smaller piece of what's available. And you need to really understand what your value is. You also need to embrace technology. Technology is here to stay. It's
Mhm.
part of what we are. Most of our marketing is done with a proprietary AI that we've built called Desi. And we bring in technology all day long. We consider ourselves a real estate technology company. And Robert is actually a coder. And so he writes the first version and then brings it to the design team. So he knows what his vision is. And I think that's an unfair advantage for us, because it's something that we are able to shift, be agile, and be able to serve the agents at the highest level, but more importantly, pivot with whatever is happening in the market. So I think that that's where you need some, from a company level, agility, and from an agent level, really understanding value proposition.
Okay. First of all, he codes. I mean, he's an expert marketer. I'm in,
Oh,
I'm in the business. I'm in the Central Florida area. I know his marketing.
yes,
And he's a coder.
and he's
And
a coder.
is there anything he can't do? I'm not
I
sure.
haven't
So
found one yet.
that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about AI. What do you see as the future of AI in real estate?
It's really efficiency. It's efficiency in what we are doing and tasks that we do, things that make the agent a bit more productive. Everything in life is infinite, right? You can actually sort of make as much money as you want. You can breathe as much air as you want. The only thing that's finite is time. And so we all share the same 24 hours, right? We all have the same clock. We all have the same
Mhm.
minutes in the day. And so if you can actually use AI to gain more of your minutes, you can do more and accomplish more.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I see so many different products out there. I feel like there's going to be a little bit of a consolidation of some of those, much like
There's
the
no doubt.
iPhone apps and that. But it's amazing what could be accomplished with it. Like I use it for emojis when I don't know like an emoji to use. I ask it to tell me which emoji to use. So
Listen, ChatGPT is now a part of our everyday lives,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Either writing your emails or perfecting your emails or
hmm,
getting your tasks done or doing your social media or
yeah,
creating your whole, your network,
hmm,
going through your CRM system. All of these tasks that would take hours to
yeah.
do is now done in minutes.
Yep. And my daughter is a freshman in college, and they're teaching in her writing class, they're teaching her how to use it, not to write the paper,
Right.
but to help them formulate, an outline and,
Yep.
organize it and that. So it's really interesting for sure.
There is.
Yeah. So my last question is if you had to give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would that advice be?
Oh, I like that one. You know what I've learned throughout is that you can't grow with your same circle of friends forever because you plateau. And the same way that I'm sort of enamored of growing something, of growing a company, of growing agents, the only way that you have self growth is by the people that you're surrounded with. And those people will allow you to reach a certain level. When you're there, you plateau with the same people. And then you need to have a new group that will elevate you because they hold the key to that next step. And so that was something that I wish I would have learned when I was 18.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, you do have that song, Make New Friends But Keep the Old. So, like,
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Let ChatGPT deal with the old ones.
That's great.
Yeah,
Well, well, Michael, thank you so much for joining the Real Trending podcast. It has been a pleasure having you on, and I wish you much success in your role as CEO of LPT. So,
Tracey, thank you so much. And I
yeah,
look forward to seeing you soon.
thanks.
Bye bye.